These are kill on-site commander cards that dominate the board state.
I'm your host, Joe Cherries.
I'm your host, BZ, joined by Amber, and that makes us the Nitpicking Nerds. We still make videos every day. We're getting really close to the holidays, and if you want to support us with your holiday money, you can go to Patreon and send us a little Christmas gift. And if you do, we'll love you as much as we can without making you feeling uncomfortable.
Yes, we'll love you as much as we love Infamous Coco, one of our great patrons who gets a shout out in this video.
Good for you. Happy holidays. And we got to shout out TCG Player. It's a place you can go to buy Magic cards for the same price that you were going to buy them anyway, except you're starting with a special link that we're providing in the description. Once you start with that link, it doesn't even matter where you go. You're just supporting the nerds without spending extra money just because you started with the link.
Yes, you can also go to moxfield.com, which we're sponsored by. So there's going to be an ad in this video. We'll tell you more about Moxfield. Guess where it is right now? In the, no, not description. It's not called that. The comment section.
And you will fail.
And you will fail. And if you get it right, you cheated.
And happy birthday to everyone's birthday is today. Let's go. Kill on-site cards. They dominate the game. If you don't kill these commander cards, you basically are on a fast track to losing. You know, this is like very immediate. Like, you need to kill them immediately. Like, they can't untap with them. You're going to die.
And now we're going to the extreme with this. These are cards that absolutely, when untapping with them, can just lose you the game on that turn. There are awesome cards like Bolas's Citadel, Smothering Tithe, Rhystic Study that will gain you advantage, and if not answered, will often win you the game, but they don't directly win you the game like these cards do.
Yeah, you want to kill Rhystic Study, but not because you're going to lose to Rhystic Study next turn.
Yeah,
this is all stuff you need to kill right now. It's not a debate. There's no philosophy. The game will end. And we're going to start with, this one's real easy to see. It's Nyxbloom Ancient, 7 mana, triples your mana production. If you triple your mana production, this is trivial. The game is over.
Yeah, and this card is so scary in a deck that ramps hyper aggressively because sometimes you don't even get the chance because they have like 20 lands in play because they're a hyper ramp deck. They play this. What are you going to do? Kill it afterward? It doesn't matter. They'll float all the mana into their mana pool. This card is so good. And this kind of applies to all mana doublers, right? Where it's like answer mana doublers or they're going to run with the game. Vorinclex, I think, is in this a little less than Nyxbloom Ancient. But that card can also just lose you the game because you'll start just time walking yourself when you waste your mana.
Yeah, I think the rest of them are a pretty big step below. These are the real ones where I'm like, okay, you can't be staring at an Nyxbloom Ancient for very long. You're either dead or you killed it.
Yeah, because it's so extreme. I mean, mana doubling is one thing. Mana tripling is a whole nother just thing. One land producing 3 mana is silly, and any permanent you tap, like something like a Gilded Lotus, it taps for 9 mana. It's silly.
Yeah, and then you just have things like they're going to start storming off with Great Henge. They're going to start storming off with Guardian Project, and you're just going to die. They're going to find Finale of Devastation or whatever. You can't survive this. You need to kill it every time.
Moving on, we have Elish Norn. This card is so much better than it looks, and it looks amazing. Mm-hmm. It's so weird to me that I look at Elish and I say, that's a great card. But actually, it's an amazing card that must be answered because how can you attack and how can you survive being attacked when your creatures are too smaller and theirs are too bigger?
Yeah, it's a 4 power toughness gap on everything, and there's just no getting out from under it. In the combat metas that we're talking about, you just can't get out from under an Elish Norn. It has to die, or most likely, you're not going to be able to play much Magic.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to lock all your small stuff off the board, and anything that's even remotely big is shrunk down by a large margin. Like, a 7/7 being a 5/5 is such a dramatic difference in combat.
Your 6/6 trades with their 2/2s.
Yes, which is silly to think about. Cards kind of similar to this. We have Kamal and Pathbreaker Ibex. Both of them are overruns every single turn, and if they stay on the battlefield, the constant overrunning of these cards is just going to win the game also.
Yeah, you just cannot let them untap. This one might be the least kill on site, but it's Terror of the Peaks, and every time I seem to let this card untap, I die. Because it's always way worse than it looks. It's like, oh, it's Warstorm Surge, but the fact that this is a creature just means that it existing at all threatens your life.
Yeah, I mean, I would also say Warstorm Surge, though an overcosted and not as strong card as Terror of the Peaks, is a must answer as well because they're just going to be spamming. All your threats that are going to be on the battlefield are going to be gone. And if your life total is even remotely low, you're dead. You're just going to die to 1 or 2 creatures entering the battlefield.
And we're talking what I'm worried about is make a bunch of tokens that are pumped. Make a bunch of Terror of the Peaks, clone it, reanimate a bunch of creatures at the same time. You're just going to die.
Exactly. So no matter when you see Terror of the Peaks, even if it's just like they play it on turn 4 after 1 ram spell, get rid of it because it's going to get so much advantage and it's going to kill you. This card always kills you.
Always gets his man. Let's go to the next one. I mean, if this one's not obvious, I don't know what is. Omniscience. Your spells are free. That's like infinite mana. That's not even triple mana.
Yeah, exactly. And the tough thing about omniscience is sometimes you can't answer it, right? If they have that counter spell in hand, they can cast it for free, and you're just not getting away with anything at that point. They're going to stop you. Obviously, if they untap with this card, or they can cast 2, 3, 4 spells with it, there's no way to ever stop them. Everything is free. They're going to find whatever piece they need as long as they have some card draw in their deck.
Yeah, without counter spells, you have a very small window if they're about to start drawing cards. You can, after the first or second draw spell, try to kill it, and maybe hopefully they haven't found an answer, but eventually there's just too late.
Yes, and to a lesser extent, we have Dream Halls, which works for all players, but you have to discard a card of the same color.
Mostly like mono blue.
Yeah, mostly like mono blue. There's also in wheel decks. Decks like to really just cast wheels. They play this card a lot. This card is really, really annoying too. It's basically a mini Omniscience.
Yeah, I don't think you really need to untap with Omniscience. Who's next?
It's Hullbreaker Horror, and this card is a beast because when someone is playing a Hullbreaker Horror and they're playing the deck designed to take advantage of this, you don't get to do anything. They lock you out of the game. Any removal spell you play, they're bouncing to your hand. Maybe instead of bouncing it to your hand, they bounce the Hullbreaker Horror back to their own hand so that you can't kill it, and you don't even have the removal spell anymore. This card is silly strong. It gets permanents off the battlefield and spells off the stack. What a great Magic card.
And it can't be countered. So there's no counter warring this. It's just going to resolve, and then you're going to have to deal with it. It's close to not being able to play Magic because the cantrips and all this stuff just chains into each other. Or like, God forbid, you're playing a removal spell, and they're like, counter it, bounce your threat. You can no longer tap out for anything because it's just too big of a risk. You just don't get to play if it doesn't resolve, if they have any response at all.
When a deck is designed to take advantage of a Hullbreaker Horror, it's not close. The game is going to be absolutely one-sided until this thing is removed.
Yeah, we're talking you're 3v1ing people, and this isn't just if you throw Hullbreaker Horror in a random deck, but if they're like a flash deck, they're got a bunch of instants, their control deck, you're almost done. You got to watch out.
This card is real good and really scary.
Just like this next one, which is the cheapest to cast on the list, but if you do not kill Patron Wizard, you don't get to play Magic the Gathering. You're playing Discard My Cards the Gathering, because if there's a bunch of wizards in play, they all tap. Without Summoning Sickness, they can do this, or with Summoning Sickness, to counter a spell unless they pay 1.
It's funny. This is one of the most niche ones, too, right? Because
it's so miserable.
It only ever fits into wizard decks. Like, it's very specific. But if you're playing against a wizard deck and a Patron Wizard hits the battlefield, it's not going to be fun for anybody because all your spells are going to be taxed. Are you going to cast a 3-drop into this when there's 4 untapped wizards and you only have 3 more mana? Probably not, because that feels pretty miserable to have to sacrifice a spell like that.
So what are you supposed to do? Like, you have to, all right, guys, I'll discard 2 cards, basically, and then the next person can maybe kill it. We'll see. I think even Patron Wizard by itself is like, I would be raising my eyebrow because, like, you still just can't tap out for stuff. Like, it's annoying by itself. As soon as there's 3 wizards, you are in danger of being locked out.
Yes, and one of the biggest issues with this is, like say they had a mana leak. Like, you could just say, oh, I don't pay the 3, then cast another spell afterward. No, this is 1 at a time.
Incremental,
So you have to pay 1, and then they go, okay, pay the 1 again.
They get all the decision points. If they're like, I've sufficiently ruined your turn, they can just stop.
Exactly. And then no matter what, as long as they have the mana to counter your spell from that point, whatever your next spell is, they'll have the mana to counter that as well.
Isn't it great? Yeah, Patron Wizard's surprisingly awful to play against. You need to kill it.
I don't think it's surprising at all. I think this is obviously.
I think some people don't know that this is one of actually the least fun cards I've ever played against.
It is miserable. I agree with you 100%.
So you gotta kill it. You also have to kill Old Gnawbone and his buddy Clouth. They're like released at the same time, and they're so similar. They're both back-breaking. Old Gnawbone's gonna give more of a permanent mana source. You can cast spells and activate abilities. Clouth only lets you cast spells, but he's right away. It's haste. There's no blocking. There's no combat damage. It's just done. It's over. They made 25 mana when they attack, so now you're screwed.
It's so interesting because I would say Old Gnawbone is the more must-answer on-board threat right away. It has the potential to combo on top of just getting so much mana advantage. It's stupid. Clouth is, I think, the better Magic card overall when we're not talking about a must-kill threat because it has haste and it comes down right away and gets
your value faster.
It's super interesting to think about it like that. Clouth is silly. Old Gnawbones is silly. Both of these cards I've seen just win games by themselves. The amount of mana generated by them is absolutely completely over the top. It's never a little mana. The minimum Clouth is making is 4. The minimum you're usually getting from Old Gnawbones is 7. These are really big mana amounts.
Yeah, we talk about letting people untap with any of these threats. it's just not even it's not even something I would ever want to do with so far any of them. It's like the thought of letting anyone untap with any one of these cards is deadly. And this one is just like, oh, they got 2 attacks in with Clout. They made like 50 mana. Old Gnawbone came down, they attacked, got a bunch of treasures, and now they're doing it again. What are you supposed to do?
Yeah, exactly. And some of these characters are so scary because they don't even necessarily have to untap with them. That's what's so scary. It's like, these are must-answer threats. Never let your opponent untap with these. But sometimes you can't do anything about it.
Right, like they have 10 wizards, Patron Wizard, it's too late. They have all the instants, Hullbreaker Horror, it's too late. They have Counterspell, Omniscience, it's too late.
Yeah, exactly. And this next one is funny because we talked about it very recently, actually. It's doubling season. It was in cards we disagree on. And you can't let a Planeswalker deck
That's what we're talking about.
untap with a doubling season. It's not a viable strategy.
Nope.
You are just going to lose the game.
Not advisable.
If they're playing Planeswalkers, you know they have Field Researcher Tameo, whatever it's called.
Yeah, Tameo Field Researcher, which is draw 3 cards Omniscience, and then there's the other Tameo, which is like your cards don't go away.
Yeah, we talked about how Omniscience is must answer. What if you couldn't answer it because it was an emblem?
It's an emblem that drew 3 cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them like that. I mean, even if they have like Liliana Dreadhorde General, you lose. You have 1 land and 1 of each permanent. You can't win. You cannot win.
That is the power of doubling season in Planeswalker decks. It is an absolute staple of that archetype for a good reason, because when combined with 10 different Planeswalkers, it's pretty much an instant win.
Right. Even if doubling seasons, it's okay. It's an okay card. Planeswalkers, most of them are bad. But in this deck, you answer doubling season or you move to the next game.
Yes, because it will win.
Yeah, we got this next one is a Flicker card. If this isn't a Flicker deck and you don't kill it, I really contemplate conceding. This is Agent of Treachery. It's going to steal your best permanent. Oof, you just got like 3 for 1. That's a feel bad, but it's not a must answer because it's kind of like a spell. It already happened. But they're a Flicker deck. If you don't stop it, they're just going to do it again and again and again and again. And sometimes it's like, oh, teleportation circle, trigger on end step. Here's another one. How many permanents can you lose before you just quit?
Yeah, and on top of all of that, this card is stealing every single of the best permanent on the battlefield over and over and over again because you're playing against that Flicker deck. What if this card refueled your hand to give you more ways to flicker? This card is silly good. It is like Agent of Treachery is legitimately just such an unfun card in decks that can flicker. It's crazy.
We're not talking about these cards just because they're like they happen to be unfun. It's a coincidence. We're talking about they are must kills. Like for the game, whether or not they are fun to you, you have to kill them.
Well, I think often cards that force you to have answers
or die
or lose are often unfun.
They can be.
That's not a like hard and fast statement, as there are a lot of cards that do that. But I think that's why some of these cards are really unfun, like Agent of Treachery.
Yeah, it's not like this is the Rogues Gallery of the most liked Commander cards.
No, it's not. It's definitely some cards. A lot of these, almost all of them, maybe not Elishnorn and Terror of the Peaks, get rule zeroed out often.
Yes.
And one of the most must-answer cards of all time is actually a website called Moxfield.com. And that was a perfect segue, BZ, wasn't it?
I think so, because Moxfield, other websites probably want to kill Moxfield. It's too big of a threat on their metaphorical battlefield. All these redacted sites suck. Moxfield's the best for many reasons, Cherries.
Yes, one of the main reasons I really like is how you can sort your cards. Honestly, it's so nice that you can sort your cards. And they got a playtest feature. Seriously, how many websites like this have the playtest feature?
That are good.
Zero. One, actually, Moxfield.com.
If you're not using it, you're falling behind. Get on it.
Yeah, seriously.
This next one is actually not even that good of a card. It's Gisela, Blade of Gold Knight. It's fine. It's whatever. But once you do the trouble of getting it out and now it's relevant in the game, you can't really attack that player, and you got to watch out for you got aggression coming from every which way. It's all doubled at you. Everyone has incentive to attack, not the person, because you can't even really do that much damage. So if Gisela's actually out, it's pretty rough.
Yeah, Gisela is really silly. You can't hurt the person, basically. Half damage rounded down is not a lot of damage. A 7/7 hits for 3. Are you going to waste your 7/7 attacking for 3 when you can use it to attack for 14? No.
They also have a 10 power first striker on defense.
Yes, like you can never get through this thing. It literally makes everybody, all of their opponents, die super fast, and they die super slow. You really have to get this thing off the battlefield, because not only that, they give it +1/+1 and double strike, dead. Dead, so one shot, it's over.
You take 24. There's really just no world where I want my opponent to untap with Gisela. Things are going to go horribly wrong, and it's also like if you let them untap, the game is now like out of your hands. It's so unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen. Do they have like an Ember Cleave or something? I don't know. You are just going to die to anything. It's like you're twice as vulnerable.
Yes. To follow this one up, we have Macias the Unhallowed, and this thing is both a combo machine and a value machine.
Unlike Gisela, it's like a really, really good card.
Yeah, this card is stupid good. You can just throw this thing in any black deck with creatures, which is pretty much all black decks, and it'll just be good. Macias gives all of your creatures, except humans, a second life and +1/+1 for some reason.
Yeah, the problem with this guy is the Undying is not like it's not a checked thing. It just cares if there's a counter. So if there's not a counter for any reason, guess what? We just get to keep going.
Yes, exactly. So it's an easy infinite, but it's not even infinites that we're necessarily worried about here. If this thing stays in the battlefield, you can't wipe the board, because wiping the board will only get rid of Macias, and the rest of the creatures will just come back.
It's like the Black Nyx formation, where it's like, how many versions of the creatures that they're playing do you want to play against? 7? Because you're just going to have to keep, like, oh, here's Blood Artist, and here's the, like, we start throwing in things like, oh, here's Phyrexian Delver. Well, now, when that thing comes in, you bring something back. That thing has Undying. You get 2 uses out of it. You get 2 uses out of the Delver. God help your opponents. It's just going to be a 5-minute turn, and they're going to hate it.
Yeah, and if they already have a Sackle out on the board, again, like a lot of these other cards, it's almost too late, because any of that value that they were going to get, they can just get now. And all their creatures are going to get all those ETBs again, and any value, say you have a Yawgmoth on the battlefield from the sacking, is just going to be... Yawgmoth also just goes infinite with this. I wasn't even thinking about that, but...
As long as you have like a Blood Artist.
As long as you have a way to negate the life. Yeah, this card is stupid. Has a million combos combined with being a great value engine.
Yeah, and then it even says, when humans deal damage to you, destroy them.
Yeah, which never happens.
And it's
but
flavor text.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
It doesn't matter, because you don't attack the Macias player. Macias is dead, or the player is dead, or you're going to get smacked by Macias.
In a game of Commander, have you seen that?
I don't think I think Macias basically makes that line of text irrelevant.
I think so too, but I think it'd be interesting for it to happen.
It'd be so funny if it happened. It'd be like, actually, that's dead.
It'd be hilarious if it was like their commander.
Yeah, that'd be super sweet.
That'd be pretty funny. Next is Jin-Gitaxias Core Augur. And
pretty simple, right?
Yeah, this card is very obvious why it needs to die. 10 mana, flash. Your opponent's max hand size is reduced by 7, meaning if nothing else is affecting it, it's a big old goose egg.
Yeah, they can't play the game. They don't have cards. And obviously, once you don't answer this, how are you ever supposed to answer it? Your cards are gone. You can't draw cards. Those are gone. You're living off the top.
And to add insult to injury, the player who controls this is drawing a fresh 7 every single end step.
It's brutal. Yeah, you obviously have to kill Jin-Gitaxias. This one is like, it hasn't been that big of a boogeyman at our tables. Like, we usually pack removal, but it obviously is a must answer. The game is on the line.
It's a boogeyman sometimes in my...
If you ninjutsu it.
Yes, because I ninjutsu it out on turn, 4, and
it's like, okay.
Yeah, what are we
basically working with our opening hand still.
Yep, exactly. So it's like, if my opening hand doesn't kill it, it's staying around.
Yeah, these next ones, there's a cycle of 5, but we'll make fun of one of them. It's the Ancient Dragon cycle. This is like the classic, just wait till I untap, but these ones actually have pretty backbreaking abilities when they hit. They're on average hitting for like between 9 and 12 to reanimate things, make a bunch of tokens, make a bunch of treasures, or draw a bunch of cards and give you no max hand size forever. Did I leave one off?
No, you didn't, actually.
Okay.
The green one pretty much doesn't exist because it's such poop.
Not a must kill.
Not a must kill. Seriously, all of the other ones are, like you said, like the white one, which isn't even like the best thing ever. But if it hits, there's so many 1/1s, and they're all flying dragons. They're huge threats to the game. Blue puts you in such a large amount of card advantage. It's ridiculous. And though the numbers can be low, and in the case of being low, it's not that big a threat. You can't risk that.
You don't know.
You can never take the risk. The average roll is 10.5. So that means 10.5 on any of these, besides the green one, is really, really good and going to be a threat.
I will just add, the white one looks the worst, but also in certain decks, like if it's in the dragon deck, you can't ever let them make 17 dragons at once, because they're going to have stupid Scourge of Valkus out.
Or in a tokens deck where it's just like, oh, okay, all these tokens come out and they trigger some silly thing like Kathar's Crusade. You can't let that happen.
Yeah. So all the dragons, pretty solid. But these next ones are basically the end of the world if you let them untap. This is Kozilek, Butcher of Truth, and Ulamog, the Infinite Gyro, specifically.
Yeah, and the reason they're here is because they have one little keyword ability that is a little unfun, and it's Annihilator.
So aptly named.
Oh, it's not even like small numbers. Like Annihilator 1, you can deal with that. Maybe Annihilator 2. Annihilator 4? Ugh, that's a big number. Every time this attacks you, you have to sacrifice 4 permanents. That's not sustainable. That's not something
you're
you
losing
can do.
lands real quick. I've played against Artisan of Kozilek. I have it in a budget deck, and I've played against it. Annihilator 2 is very inconvenient. I never just want to get rid of 2 things. If you have tokens, lucky you. But you probably don't, and especially if this is like post-board wipe or something, oh my god. Or they play this and then they play some kind of wipe. You just lose.
Yeah.
You can't lose 4 lands and play the game.
And one of the most annoying things about these 2 is that they give value on cast. Kozilek draws you 4 cards right away. So even if you answer, at least it drew 4 cards. Ulamog destroys a permanent on cast and is indestructible, so it's even harder to answer.
And they don't really go away. They get shuffled in, so you might see them again.
That's true. Unless, Ulamog, it's rare that Ulamog is on the field. And
Yeah,
somehow
you have to fleshbag Marauder.
Sacrifice, yeah, exactly. Which is pretty rare for to happen to Ulamog overall.
And if you're wondering, wow, these cards are all must kills, I wonder if any of them made it to the top of the year list. Well, they couldn't have because they weren't released in 2022. But if you want to see what was released in 2022 that made it to the top of the list, it's right here.
Yes. Peace out, Tribe Scouts.